Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a look here. I want to make sure that we have folks rolling into the session. Third session of the day. My voice is still holding up. I guess you can hear me. And if you can, if anyone could post in chat, let's just make sure that the room is populating and functioning correctly. There we go. Nick Jones, thank you. All right, excellent. I did see a few emojis pop up. There's Russell, Peter, William, Whoop, Woot. Excellent. All right, so I'm a big fan of Julia Sheehy. I think it was Toddy that connected us, and we're connected on LinkedIn. I watch the posts that you do on there, and you seem to be, you post pretty often on LinkedIn, or repost anyway, and I see that activity, and so yeah, I'm excited that we're finally getting you on a TLDC event, and that you're here. And let's see, I am gonna see, you did send me a little bio that I can read off, Julia. Let's see, I'll read it. You say, I fell into L&D by merit of having worked as a technical trainer at Marist College 18 years ago. Yeah. A woman I'd worked with there recruited me to my current job. You've worked in content management, application support, and maintenance programming. Your formal degree is in math. You seem very, very math oriented in some of the messaging that we've had in the past. While you were active duty in USAF, had the good fortune to attend occupational instructor training at the Community College of USAF. Variety of experiences, but as an actual ID, you claim that you're quite a newbie, but you've been at it for a while, and you definitely seem more than competent as an instructional designer. So maybe not so much a newbie. And I'm glad that you're participating in this one. I'm excited because the backstory that you told me about this particular game and the idea you had was really, really compelling. And so I want everyone to know this is going to be a great example of how you basically can use RPGs in a learning experience. And with that, I'm just going to let you take it away.
Thanks, Luis. I just want to say thank you to everyone here, and I'm grateful to be able to give back just a teeny bit to this group in particular. And Luis and Toddy have been, whether they realize it or not, amazing mentors to me. I am still a novice, and I work for a tiny company that I am going to bet none of you have heard of. It's called Owl Cyber Defense. Small company, and we merged again with 3 other companies, also tiny, so we're still small. And we build network security devices and software for the oil and gas industry, anyone who does power distribution, some food manufacturing, and a lot for the Department of Defense, and not just in the United States. So it's a niche that we fill. And my job, it'll be almost 2 years, is technical trainer. And so technically I get to train people is the big joke. I am not an engineer. My customers are. Some of these people have multiple masters. A few of them have their PhD in network engineering and hardware design, and you name it. So they are the cybersecurity professionals that I feel quite daunted sometimes and very inspired by. And it is my job to present the product training to them. As you might imagine, not being an engineer and trying to speak their language, that was a bit of a steep learning curve. And my previous jobs were, I had 3 gigs in higher ed. I worked for a nonprofit. I had a brief stint working for as a civil servant, installing a 911, the system, the software for the 911 system for Dutchess County, New York. And like Luis said, before that, I was in the Air Force, which is where I met Toddy, because I was in the same unit with her husband, Kevin, at the 552nd Air Control Wing at Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma. So I won't waste any more of your time. What I'm hoping is a couple things that I can get some feedback on where this idea is going, and hopefully not torture you. Long story short, gamification is exactly where I want to go with some of the training, because I can gain a lot more information from the customers than I can deliver to them. I can they can read the administrative guide. They can read a manual. Anybody can read an owner's manual and figure out how something works. But when they need to solve a problem quickly, they want to go to a knowledge base, which my company does not yet publish. They would rather solve it for themselves, but we make our customers call. And some things are not in our guides, our administrative guides, because the information is proprietary, or it might be confidential and classified or beyond, and we can't divulge everything. So they really have these black boxes, and they have to make them work and have a good attitude about it in an emergency. Okay, so I got the idea for how to do this from all of you, basically, but also after doing a little bit of reading, a little bit of research, I found there are an enormous number of games out there. And if it's okay, I'll just post it in the chat. Maybe not. I found one by Ms. Tiffane Romand Latipi, and she's a cryptographer, right? And she had done at Black Hat 2016 a presentation on how to deliver cybersecurity training, but make it fun. And I thought that was brilliant. And so I can post a link to her document in the chat or send it out. And the other one was Josh Bressers, B-R-E-S-S-E-R. He's a CEO of a company similar, right? Similar presentation, but his was for people who actually work in cybersecurity, right? So this was a different tack. Mine is for the rest of us, right? I'm not a brilliant cybersecurity engineer. I'm just a person who uses technology. And all the cybersecurity training I have endured has been tedious. All right, so without much further, I'll just read to you basically the gist of it. The idea being we all gather. And I have 30 cards that we can share. I'll send you the link. And actually, Josh is the one who came up with them. I got permission from both Josh and Tiffane to use their material, which they've licensed in Creative Commons, for anyone to take a look at and use if they wish to. Every person in the room has a character sheet. There are timed rounds. Every 5 minutes, there's a new finding. We call them findings. The rest of us would call it an attack or a problem, but what's the finding? And so the finding will be revealed, which represents a round. Anyone can talk anytime, right? And the session kicks off with a phone call from a journalist to the CEO, right? And you, as participants in this scenario, would discuss and decide whether or not to trust someone, an entity or a person. What are the attacker's motivations, the necessary trade-off, and the goals? And the idea is this: all of us here, no matter what you do, no matter how much technology you work with or don't work with, right, in the course of the work that we do every day, and folks who work at a bakery, right? My dad was a plumber, God rest his soul. My mom, an accountant. The dentist down the street. Everyone knows about security, physical security. I lock the doors of my car. I lock my house. I have a security camera. My sister has a Ring doorbell. So we understand the concepts of security. We merely need to learn how to apply those ideas to cybersecurity and recognize that simply because I don't see something doesn't mean the threat isn't there. You're not paranoid if you don't think they're watching you, and you're not paranoid because they might be. But in everyday life, we have to decide these things. And physical security, presuming the worst case scenario, is like where we step into this. So that's the bigger goal. And I came up with a whole story, and I will share the slide deck that I would like to try out on my coworkers later this week. So you can tell me if this would actually work for them. So when I find it, here we go. So I'm sharing this, and I'm going to do the slideshow from the beginning. So the scenario is this. It's the future. We have, as a group, evolved much further than ever before. We've almost conquered hunger, poverty, a lot of things. And the foundation behind this amazing society in the future is the fact that a group of scientists have discovered a means to generate power merely using the magnetic core of the Earth, based upon the principles of magnets and all sorts of physics and things that are well beyond most mere mortals. And this group of scientists have decided that everyone can use this tool, and they can provide power to everybody in the entire Earth. And they have developed a very lengthy algorithm and encryption key for protecting it. And so it's in your building. We all work together. It's in our building, this amazing device, and the algorithm that protects it And these scientists, this group of scientists from all over the world, have made this decree that, you know, everybody gets to use it. All the nations of the world get to have this amazing source of unlimited power generation, as long as they stay in peace, as long as they cooperate, as long as they can simply, if they can't get along really well, at least tolerate each other, right? And so that is the future, this amazing, you know, world that we live in. And you and I, we work in this place. Well, I don't. I'm your game master, if you haven't figured that out yet. And this is where we are. It's gotten so comfortable and such a focus on solving problems as a world that there is no security on our building. I mean, we have doors, we have windows. There's no security where we work. And the game kicks off with a phone call from a cybersecurity journalist and an email to our CEO. And from there, we have the challenge of trying to prevent a problem. And the problem is this: someone, some entity, whether it be a rogue nation state or some entity from another solar system, wants the algorithm, and they also want the power device. And they're not going to stop until they get it. And their intentions are not positive. They don't want to share. They don't want to be part of this peaceful world. And the scientists that work with us and get to use the algorithm that the original creators built, they're almost on the brink of curing cancer and childhood diabetes. They've come up with a lot of solutions, but they are not finished with their work yet. And to lose the device and the encryption would devastate them. Furthermore, if this entity or this malactor, right, a threat actor is what it's called in cybersecurity, this bad actor succeeds in taking away the device and the algorithm, they can shut down all of our power, all of our infrastructure, our entire communication base. All public transportation would stop. All communication would stop. We would be in the dark. And so here is where they would leave us. They're not interested in actually having a hot war. They're not interested in getting damaged themselves. But they do know that if they were to pull the plug and immediately put the world as we know it now or in the future, this wonderful future, in the dark with absolutely no communication and no means for people to reach out and find out what's happening, including law enforcement and all the governments of the world. They just basically yank it. They could put us into a complete and total chaos. And then the lizard brain kicks in. And even though society has evolved at an amazing pace with this technological evolution, we're still a fearful species. And that kicks in. And a whole lot of chaos could ensue. So your task, if you choose to accept it in this game, is to permit me to be your game master. And you don't see the adversary. Ideally, we would have two teams against each other in a single room, but we're not. We're online here. And so you have to trust that I'm going to use the Google Dice to roll for you. And as you go around the board, because I thought board game, I need to make this like a board game. So you recognize this, I'm sure. It's like PowerPoint. And it goes around with the various events. And so in the simple spreadsheet, I've got like 20 events and a threat actor and a possible scenario. And what I've been doing over the past few weeks is for each event that could happen to a group, lining it up with an actual, very recent real world scenario. Because rather than telling you stories about what could happen, I'm telling you about what is happening, present tense. This is what is happening. And so that I'm going to stop sharing for now so I can pause and find out, one, if people have questions, and two, if folks actually want to participate in playing this game. So I can see the chat and maybe, no, there's no questions, but anyway. So the premise is what you just heard. Would you guys like to actually try to participate as a group in the game, or would you like me to just read to you what some of the scenarios are and the findings of the other people, the folks, the two individuals that I mentioned who started this whole discussion at a Black Hat conference in 2016? So that's the premise of my game. And with each role, you as a group have to try to solve the problem. So I'm struggling with how to proceed any further. I can start the game off and hope that folks participate, but without being able to interact quickly, other than chat, it's a bit challenging. The other thing is working with tables, and to come up with this. One of the benefits that this process had for me is to have further evidence that I can bring back to work and say, look, we want to train our customers. We have a lot of information, not just about our products and their materials, but all of the things going on in the world. And I've gone through this gaming workshop, trying to codify a lot of it. We definitely need a knowledge base. So it helped get me further along in my argument for a knowledge base at work, which has nothing to do with gamification, but is everything. Yes,
Hey,
time
Julia,
is the real final boss. You're absolutely right,
Julia,
Willie. Yeah,
do you want me to try to? I mean, would it help if we invited some people on stage to see if they?
that would be brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anybody, William, Peter, Russell, anybody else out there want to be a part of? Because I can invite you on screen, and that might be kind of fun to see where. I mean, we'd actually be doing a game. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like William's in. I am. Let me get you. Oops. Let's see. William. Okay, so William's been invited. Russell is down. All right. Let's see here. Looks like Russell's going to be up again in a little bit. Can you answer that question, Julia, from Nicholas? That's right there. And there's William.
I like that idea. In fact, I should have done that. Demonstrate how I would be a participant. That would be the ideal. Like, this is how it's supposed to go. But you all know how to play. Well, most of you know how to play Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop games in general. But to your point, thank you very much, Nicholas. Some people haven't ever. Well, maybe they played Monopoly once, but I can't make that assumption that it is common to everyone that tabletop games are like, de rigueur. And some of our customers are from many different nations, but a lot of them in the Middle East, and tabletop games need to be refined a bit for that kind of presentation. So yes, I should have done like a demonstration, like, let's pretend I'm a participant. But so I see
Julie,
Russell, William. Okay.
How many players do you need? It looks like Jason is up for it too. How many do you need more
I think
players?
I'll just run with this, and
Okay.
And if you want, I can share my screen again so we can see the little board. My happy slappy little board game, and I'm not sharing it in a slideshow format just so that I can actually see the chat and see everybody else's name. So, all right, so let's pretend, Russell, you're going to get the phone call, and the first thing that happens is in our first event is that you get a call from Brian Krebs, and he's telling you, hey, there's chatter on dark web that folks are intending to take your device and take the encryption algorithm. And I don't know about you, but that is not cool for the rest of us in the society. So I don't have any further information. I'll just keep, we'll keep trying to gather. It might be nonsense, but that does seem like a plausible threat considering how valuable everything in your building is. So good luck. Bye. All right. So have fun. And we'll say, William, if you don't mind, if you want to take the character card, and we do have 30 of them, but if you wouldn't mind being the director of product security, and
Okay.
yeah, maybe the director of product security, and you've got security in a blue box, a lockpick set, security in a nutshell, and a whole lot of skills. And I don't know if you guys want to see the cards that that Josh had built for his game, but those are the character cards I was relying on. They're not visually, they're just Word documents. All right, so the idea behind this isn't to force everybody to become a cybersecurity expert. The idea is you don't have anything, now start. So Russell, William, that's the challenge. And as we enter into our space here, and I go one down, all right, so you've received the phone call that you want to use anything that they can when they do some reconnaissance on your folks. So what Brian Krebs discovered was they're targeting your employees. They want to find somebody they can either blackmail or bribe and use their credentials to get in there and obtain it. And that's your first problem, right? And so you get in the game, we would time it for 5 minutes, give you an opportunity to discuss it, and we go on to the next, next and next and next, and go around until the end. And it really is that painfully simple because I just made it up, right? So it is not a fully matured product. Obviously, it is something that I'm hoping I can promote at work. Not necessarily my game, but to promote the idea of gamification, because there are games we could purchase as a small company, or maybe we could even subcontract with folks out in Oklahoma. So Russell and William, you guys can talk amongst yourselves and tell me, what are your first efforts towards protecting this valuable device?
Yeah, I think what I really like about this is it's a guided scenario, right? So it kind of feels like a choose your own adventure. And then incrementally, it gets harder and harder because more issues start coming up. So it's really cool. William, what do you think? Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Well, it is definitely an interesting scenario. I think, that we really need to figure out whose credentials are going to be used, right? That feels like an important step. But also, where is this information actually coming from? So that could be an outward-looking thing to investigate as well, because that could potentially lead back to a source. This is challenging.
Yeah, I personally, I'm more of kind of like a full net kind of guy. Like I feel like just increase the firewall security and get people trained up on phishing emails might be a great foundation.
For sure.
But I do love the idea of maybe tracking it down to where are the weak points in our security as well.
I mean, that in and of itself could be part of the solution too, is add an extra layer to the credential process, like biometrics.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
It's
all right,
future,
so,
right?
yeah, it is. And so, unfortunately, what I didn't make clear was you have no physical security.
Oh,
so that would be the first thing is, where is it? And I did not make that clear. So thank you for that, opening it up. Because if we go to the next one, it's like, what's the next threat, next threat. And as you pointed out, it's incremental. So the first thing being, I need locks. I need, as you mentioned, security, and you mentioned biometric. So would I have maybe swipe cards and biometric, or would I just have a physical key? And yes, I need to increase my security in terms of software security on email systems and try to block out phishing. But yeah, phishing emails, boy, they are pretty amazing at how compelling they can be lately. So
yeah,
definitely.
So in your team, you would come back with some solutions, and I, as game master, say, okay, let's go on to the next thing. And internet chatter reveals that they are not just preparing to obtain the device; they're reaching out to other threat actors to try to collaborate, which kind of ups the ante. And they might even seek out to hire people, violence as a service. This is the latest thing out and about in our world, is that people are offering their services to hackers in the real world. So they'll go throw a rock through somebody's window or set fire to somebody's car. And unfortunately, this happened just a couple months ago, and the person's in jail. But they tried to set fire to a house at the behest of people who paid them online. So how would you deal with that?
So this is terrorism.
Yes. Yeah.
in a sense, yeah.
I mean, okay, so I'm just a lowly L&D designer, right?
Right.
Perhaps I contact the FBI.
Right.
That's what I was thinking too. Contact third parties, other invested interests.
I don't know if I need to be the hero here.
And that, well, and I didn't dwell on it long enough, right? But the previous one is, does anyone need to be alerted? What's your first effort? And I should have written in there to physically protect it. And who's Brian Krebs? Most people don't. If you don't work in this little world, I don't know who Brian Krebs is until I work in cybersecurity for a couple of years, and I realized he's a journalist that hackers apparently reach out to because they want to brag. And his team does a lot of research on, to try to figure out what's a viable threat, and then endlessly publishes. It's like just the book of bad news almost, that website. So if you want to get depressed, you would go there. But if you work in this field, that is a resource, right? Kind of like CNN is constant negative news. Yay. All right. So, and the idea is not to overwhelm, which I feel like is exactly what I did by mentioning the violence as a service. All right, so we go on to the next thing, your next action. Do you know who is near the device or who can access the encryption device? And what would you do if the power was cut to the building? Like if they somehow pull that device, all of us lose power. What then? And it's to get people thinking, right?
What I like about this, Julia, have you ever played Pandemic?
No, I better get on it and go play it, because I think I need to learn more than I realize. But yeah.
I think you're onto something for sure. And Pandemic has a very interesting tactic where every once in a while you'll have a random element where things will it will hit the fan, and things will start to multiply, and the problems will start to get more severe. And it kind of teaches people that we can't control everything, that we need to kind of be flexible and adaptable to these new changes.
Right. That honestly is the whole point of any cybersecurity training, whether it's for people like us or these brainiacs who, when they do their tabletop games, they're talking about exactly what routers they would put in and what firewall, and would they put in a firewall in a one-way device. And they're speaking at a level that I can't imagine. So this was supposed to be about, like, what would you do? And just think about the different constraints. So imagine we roll, right? And I can bring up the screen or just read it to you. We roll, and there's an impersonator who found some fake information and registered a website that kind of looks like yours, right? And they did this very easily with the public whois registration, right? So everybody's dealt with social media. And on one of the tabs, I've got social media. You've got hacks for Facebook accounts. You've got hacks for, I think most people here probably have heard about eye leakage, how using Safari, unfortunately Safari, and if you use it to access your Gmail, it can be compromised until you apply a patch from Apple, but it can only work on the Mac OS. So it, not necessarily on your phone. So there's an outstanding issue, right? And then throw that at people. So I feel like, as much as I put into this, I didn't really prepare enough to even run the game properly without overwhelming folks, because that definitely is not something I wanted to do. Be like, okay, they would throw you in and get you to try to think like one of the engineers I work with, because that's not fair.
I think
it's still a fun thought experiment.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I think if you provided some more resources, like having a couple orders, or maybe some maybe they could reach out to certain experts, like have cards and be like, oh, this is someone that you've heard, you have a connection with someone at the FBI, or you have a connection with someone that can create a good, firmware, something like that. I feel like that would really elevate this too, is some extra resources.
Someone in a governing body who could provide, manpower.
Yes. And believe it or not, we do have those agencies, but I didn't think to add that to this game. We have a thing called CISA, right? So Center for Internet Security Administration, right? And they're akin to, but they don't fall under Department of Homeland Security, and it's a relatively new organization. But we also have DHS, everybody knows about, and you mentioned FBI, and all of these agencies are who we would probably wind up reaching out to. I probably would have started with the NSA, but so for our time limitations, also, as someone who's worked in L&D and security, thanks very much. And starting with the customer requirements. So the customer requirements for this, right, are we just get to play and talk back and forth, right? And so if I keep going with it, your next action being, they're studying your team. What can they learn about each of you on social media? What could they learn about each of you on social media? And can they discover which room the device is in and the encryption, but merely by watching your building? And can they discover, enough about you to maybe guess just one of your passwords? Could they guess, could they, if they watched you for, say, a year, and this is a point in the game where I thought I would veer off into telling a story and relate to one of the more recent hacks where the hackers watched everybody that worked at this oil and gas plant for 3 years before they launched. And then they launched their attack, they dribbled in the code, the malware in pieces, little bits, kind of like leaves on a stream, right? You know, you ever go hiking, you see a stream and you're like, oh, that's cool. And things start to collect and you see a big collection. You wonder if there's a beaver dam and maybe it's just stuff being stuck, right? But that was the idea behind it. They started infiltrating the plant in small enough portions that they didn't trigger the malware, they didn't trigger the antivirus, they didn't raise any alarms because it was such a low threshold of data basically hitchhiking its way into their network. And so after 3 years, how much would I gain about each one of you if I were to dedicate the time and effort to monitor all of your social media, watch you physically, literally watch you, and observe everything and anything I could about you? Could I compromise just one of your accounts?
Well, unfortunately, if it was me personally, the answer to that's probably yes.
Oh yeah,
Me
like
too.
I post about my favorite dog park, like my favorite cafe, like I'm wide open.
Me too. And that is the part that stung the most in all my experiences over the past 2 years. I'm like, I thought I was kind of smart. No, open. And yet, how am I supposed to promote both my workplace and the work that I do without sharing information? Like, how am I supposed to collaborate with folks here if I don't share information? So it's sticky, right? And so a lot of folks who work in the customer base that I serve, they're extremely reserved in terms of their personal information, depending upon where they work, and a bit touchy about questions, which makes icebreakers during training sessions near impossible. So I just get right into the information because they're not going to answer me anyway. So next would be, here's the biggest problem for the group, right? And so this is such a cool device and such a cool algorithm and such a beautiful discovery. And the world is super happy to have this amazing energy generation that isn't tearing the rest of the planet up. And everybody can stop, worrying about some pretty significant issues with pollution. So the President of the United States, the Canadian Prime Minister of England, the Premier, and presidents of a handful of other nations want to meet at your location and use it as like a PR opportunity. Look how great and awesome it is. And you need to decide, can they do this? And you do have the opportunity to push back and say no. And how would you communicate that? What's your position, and how do you communicate the threat and make it, I don't know, plausible enough that even the most ferocious PR for the White House backs off?
Julie, be honest with me. This is an episode of 24, isn't it?
No, I actually, that's really funny. I've seen it described. I haven't watched that show, and that's another one I probably should. But anyway, so this is supposed to, according to all of the experiences that the other people who work in cybersecurity and have done a simple role-playing game like this, what they've said is that it was very interesting to hear the conversations, and they were surprised to find that folks immediately went to, okay, secure, lock it down. And then finally, somebody later realized, hey, do we have a legal team? And do we have a PR? Make those people do their jobs. And so I don't have to worry about it. And we forget. We start to solve problems, right in front of us, instead of pausing and catching our breath to say, I need to delegate that to somebody who has expertise in that area. You didn't fall for that trap. You were like, yeah, I'm out. I'm going to delegate that to the FBI. I don't care. And so thank you for that. But when players are invited, especially at work, they feel like they have to step up and start solving, right? So it started a lot of conversations. And one of the engineers, she made sure that people got role cards that weren't their job. Like the guy who really is the webmaster, he got the character card for HR. And the person who works in public relations got the card for the intern. Oh, yes, and that's one of the events. So let's pretend you rolled, right? We go forward in the board, and it might not be the next one, but all right. So attackers have photos of employees, and your employees start getting random survey calls, and some of them they can tell are kind of fake. And your fear is deep fake video and audio is being generated. And this is another opportunity to pause and talk about what those are and just how easy they are to make. So here's my question for you and everybody witnessing. How do you keep the game rolling? And I do understand that we learn as we do, and we're learning as we're having these discussions, but to make sure that I touch upon certain topics without straying into the drudgery of platform lecture, that was something that I wasn't sure how that would work smoothly, because nobody really wants to hear the game master droning on, your dungeon master, whatever, talking incessantly.
Well, I think what you're kind of asking for is for your learners to role play, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, and I'm about to talk about this in like 15 minutes. But
Perfect.
role play is really rooted in the knowing what someone can do, knowing the limitations of what they can do. Oh, there are my dogs. And so having those guidelines are very helpful because it shows people that there are kind of rules associated with this. Otherwise, everything is a possibility, and then you move away from what is kind of entrenched in reality. So providing those rules and knowing where people can go, it gives them a better chance to kind of practice those roles and feel comfortable in them.
100%. There has to be a box,
Right.
right? When presented with a sea of opportunities, it's invariable. Almost anybody would lock up when you're fielded with that much choice. So
Thank you for that. And that's where I wish I had, before putting up the board game, shown you the rules and the general description and then the cards, which not sure how to do that in this medium, but to assign each of you your card, like it's, you can have it there, the file, the Word document. So what you're saying is explain clearly the rules of physics still apply. You may have an unlimited budget, but we don't have unicorns or dragons that actually are going to come in and like thwart the enemy. Not necessarily. You might have software, and that the web server admin can fix things with the website, but they can't fix things having to do with email, right? And put boundaries. Like each person has their thing.
yes.
And then their ability is the score on the card, and whatever you roll, if you succeeded in thwarting this, and if you roll below it, no, our website continues to be defaced, that kind of thing, so that it's obvious how. Am I hopefully interpreting it?
Yeah. And I also really like the idea of role cards that talk about people's expertise. So, for instance, if you were saying that you're in HR and you know all the different, the benefits, the onboarding, you understand a lot of compliance issues, but you're not necessarily an engineer. So you may not be best suited to be the person who develops the firewall. But another player might be an engineer. They may not know the legal terms or the legal documents that are required in order to certify this, but they know someone in HR. And so there's this sense of collaboration with working together in their different roles too.
And then you as the game master, also, we as players may need to lean on you to fill those gaps. Because like you said, I'm the project manager, but do I know anything about managing a project like this as a player? No.
No.
So you may need to drop hints to me to say, hey, this sounds like something that Russell's character could take care of.
Thank you for that. So, and didn't even occur to me that I could do that and really, really guide it further rather than just waiting. I just sit here and stare at you.
That's a good way to get control of, a wandering situation.
And this could wander pretty quick in any group, I think, because some of the scenarios that they came up with and then I added some was, you have an internal groups, you have events, all right, so you have a hacked social media account, and then you get the help desk machines are suddenly running very slow. You get a contact call from a ransomware or something low level, but then the board member calls the CEO, asking what's going on. All of a sudden, your chat logs, your internal chat logs for the company are posted online. So now you know you've been hacked, right? What do you do? And then, and I'm not giving solutions, right? I'm just telling story after story, problem after problem, and throwing them at the group. And it's a bit difficult to get a solution and move to the next step if I don't guide it. So I really do need to be more directive in there. So ideally, the first thing would have been, physical security, and then we start locking things down. So as it goes on, if you guys can see this, you have an unrelated denial of service attack. That is something that does happen, and it can happen for just network problems. It can happen for human error, or it can happen because somebody is trying to cause a problem. But there have been many situations where it has coincided with a real difficulty, and it just seems like everything's related. So now, my paranoia is so cranked that the person at the coffee shop handing me my coffee, they're the hacker too. Like it's all snowballing, right? And so to patch or not to patch, and then I go on to asking you bluntly, should people be able to bring their own devices to work? If not, what not, right? Because I've yet to find a place where I'm not using my own, not just my phone, but my own devices to get my work done. And yet my workplace would prefer that I not do that. The same workplace that calls me on my personal device on my phone and sends me messages on the weekend that I answer with my phone, right? So should everyone use their personal devices? And if not, how would you as a group, attend to that? So the difference being this is a game and we have unlimited financial resources, but yeah.
So Kim asked a really great question in chat about how do you keep the game going without the GM narrating? So one of the things that's used in a lot of games, tabletop games, is having an NPC or a non-playable character. The GM can insert themselves as another personality in order to interact in the game with the other players. So, I'm sorry, that was Julia's question. My bad. So Julia, yes, you could have different roles for yourself in which you get in there and you do a role play with those players as well. So for instance, if you're talking about, POTUS, you could say that you're part of, their security or something, or you're part of the media team. And you interact with them and talk about like some suspicious activity you've noticed. That would kind of lead the person towards where the suspect might be.
Okay, so this particular role, this function of the game, and this is where my ignorance is definitely showing. I am so grateful that she interpreted my question in plain English for you. Thank you for answering it. So that is the problem. How do I keep the game rolling and kind of herd people like, a group of cats in a certain direction so we can get to the destination without it turning into me pontificating. So, and somebody mentioned Spotlight, and I have a lot to learn. Little backstory: my parents, immigrants, different nation, different world. I desperately wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons and was strictly forbidden because they were convinced that it was satanic ritual. And so my game playing as a young person was a little limited. But NPC is definitely something I am going to look into and add in. And ideally, I could even have like one of the engineers help me when we're training the rest of the company, because we have an entire marketing department, et cetera. Folks like me, ordinary folks who need to learn cybersecurity issues. The game is very different when it's played amongst the engineers, because now we're talking about a completely different, totally different set of vocabulary and problems and solutions that.
The great thing about NPCs is it can be as deep or as simple as you want. Like they can be a fully named, fully written out, full backstory if you want to have that level of involvement with a character you're controlling behind the card. Or it could just be you ad-libbing in the moment and going, hey, you're struggling. Okay, direct message, private message to this one player. Your assistant comes to you with this key piece of information. Right. And so now you're kind of, an actor behind the curtain, but you're still adding that subtle influence to the player's decisions.
Thank you for that. And that is how this will actually turn into something that is useful rather than just me demonstrating where I am with it. I had, and William had asked, yes, William, or no, Nicholas asked, is it, somebody had asked, I'm having trouble seeing all the chat. I have a set of events, but the board game, I had inserted additional problems as we go along the way. So every time you roll and I pull up another event, one of the problems, juice jacking, right? So you roll, if you had rolled a 13, juice jacking is the latest thing with USB ports, and it's plaguing a lot of places where we would plug in, like the airport or coffee shops, or you want to plug in just to get electricity to charge your device. But unfortunately, the simple USB port can be modified to also collect data, and it's happened. And public charging kiosks, in this, if you rolled number 13, public charging kiosks sponsored by your company, posted all over the city, were modified by skimmers and exposes everyone who plugs in their mobile device to data theft. So what do you do, right? And to get people to start talking about, well, training, but also later on in the game, and I forget which, it would be nice if I would remember where we were. We have a bonus somewhere here. You discover an IT storage closet that has an ample supply of USB data blockers. Yay. All right. And so the slang term is they're USB condoms, right? And so they're basically for your devices to prevent the data extraction, exfiltration. So, but to do the game properly, I need a lot more structure. And obviously I need a lot more practice, clearly. But to do it as a conversation back and forth, I do think is far more interesting than me just, platform lecture and the endurance test that I've experienced with the compliance training at work. So I'm not sure if I'm answering all the questions. Post your contact info at the end. Complexity card, yes. Okay. And I'm not sure if I lost Russell altogether and William. Am I?
Oh no, they're there. It's
on
just
time?
me. I had
They're
to
there.
pop in because I wanted
Yeah.
to say we're coming up on time. But Julia,
Okay.
I mean, this has been really, really fascinating. I didn't know that the session would, well, one that we'd have, Russell and William added to it. But this has been really, really cool watching the whole process.
It's been an education for me. I hope it hasn't. I will post everything that I've got for other people to look at. I hope I haven't wasted everybody else's time, because you already know the structure and how much more needs to be put into this framework for the game to actually work. For me, it's been brilliant to recognize that there are so many different ways to get the information across and engage people in order to learn together. But in order to learn together, I need to have much, much better boundaries built around all of the functions of the game. If I'm misinterpreting. Yeah.
Todd had sent me a message on the side saying that it's a great brainstorming session, and it was just it really, I think it can just help people understand like what goes into building something like this, and sort of the thought processes and things that and also just how other folks, just actually getting some players in there to help, and you've gotten some incredible ideas from both Russell and William on this. So yeah, look at that. And then Nicholas is posting a link there. Yeah, and Vanessa. Yeah, this is really, really cool. Very nice, Julia.
Thanks. And I think we're pretty much we're good to go. We're done, and I'll send you all my
Yes, you can. But I would like to know, like, what is the value that you got out of this experience?
For me, the value that I got out of this experience is to put more effort into thinking in terms of the participant. I put so much work into gathering cyber stories. Like, this is a real one, the fish tank being compromised that actually happened just a few years ago, that I didn't take the time, pause, and put myself back again into the position of the participant, the learner, as we would say, and think, well, if I'm just sitting here waiting for you to tell me what to do, am I really learning anything? Oh, okay, I'm waiting to talk to these other people. What are we talking about? I needed to put more effort into the participant experience and figure out a way to deliver the character cards and and clarify the rules up front, really up front, like this is how we play the game, not just the purpose of it and the backstory. And I did a lot of effort, but more focus on what the participant needs. And in particular, that idea that to guide the conversation, I need to insert myself as a kind of a player so that it keeps moving forward. And that clarifies for me how a game can actually work to train people. Because when I witness folks playing games, it's fun, it's a blast, but I'm like, I learned a couple things, but I'm at a loss as to how the rest of the content can be, shoehorned in there. That's what I was missing. And that's the very important piece that I got from both William and Russell and you and everybody else participating. I really hope I can get the chat. Actually, I could watch the replay, right? And endure that.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I can send you all I can send you chat messages and stuff too. I think it'd be really cool if you could do a follow-up on this, like once you have it.
Put more work into it and have it and bring it back for everybody to review it.
Yeah.
Gladly. Yeah.
Maybe we could do the same type of thing where you actually run the game.
For real. Yeah. If I could get educated. Thank you. I really am very grateful to you, Louis. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and, we'll end this session. Julia, thank you so much. I think that this was a great presentation, a great way to spend part of our day today. And we have, we have 2 more sessions left for the day, and it's been incredible so far. So, Julia, once again, thank you. I'm going to close this out 7 minutes before Russell comes back. Let's see. I can't remember the exact title that Russell is talking about. Let's see. Roll for initiative. Conquer your workplace goals with role play mechanics. So that's gonna fit right in with as a follow-up for this one. And there goes my voice. So I'm gonna go ahead and close session, and we'll see everybody back in a few minutes. All right. Yeah. Oh, and maybe if you can put your maybe your LinkedIn profile in chat.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yep. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the session, and we'll see everybody in the next one.